it feels like it's been a really long time since we've sat down and had an industry chit chat together. Anyway, you can see we've been building out a new sort of podcast type corner. So got a couple of more chairs and some more microphones. So hopefully we'll do this more regularly with maybe even Simon and Jake joining us as well. So things that you want to discuss, get them down there. We're definitely going to do the whole Cade Media underrated, overrated at some point, just for some fun. So the reason I want to talk today is because it is almost trade show season here in the UK. We've got Core Bike and we've got Ice Bike and all the sort of various trade shows are starting to happen. And industry sort of cycling news is kind of full of quite a lot of changes in the industry. It feels like lots of things are changing hands. What I've particularly noticed that big distributors like Zara Fisher, Madison, Extra here in the UK, they're the big suppliers, if you like, of all the smaller parts and accessory type brands. It's a really important part of the cycling industry because, as you know, there's just a massive wealth of choice and they need distribution warehouses to go out to small bike shops like us. Now, traditionally, these distributors have also done, 2 or 3 bike brands, like a proper bicycle brand, and then lots of different like wheels and components and bar tape and bits and pieces, the sort of thing. It does seem to me that this year, nearly all the distributors have been ditching their big bike brands. And those big bike brands going directly to either the consumer and just, I'm giving up, almost throwing the hands up and saying, we're giving up, we're just going to go direct to the consumer via our own website and maybe just work with a couple of select dealers that have had a good relationship in the past. Now, I've sort of predicted that for a long time and I really applaud that move. I think it's something that I really think has to happen to help drive the prices down of fully built bikes. It's the only way it's going to happen is to take a link out of the chain, shorten the distribution channels, if you like, and hopefully save some money and deliver that to you, the consumer. Canyon and YT Industry started it. Giant and Skechers are following suit, and I think now all the bike brands, if they need to bring their prices down, that's the easiest place to do it. They've already got most of the infrastructure. They're already building most of the bikes to send it to a bike shop. They might as well just do ever so slightly more final assembly and then deliver the bike box directly to your door. It makes perfect business sense to do that. And I think some of the big distributors have seen the writing on the wall with that and have been ditching that sort of business model in favor of picking up much more parts and accessories brand. The one that really sticks out to me actually is today that sort of prompted this podcast, if you like, was I just saw that Mavic, the big famous French wheel brand, have just signed with Chicken Cycle Kit here in the UK. Now, for those of you not in the UK, Chicken Cycle Kit is another one of the bigger brands. They do some bikes actually, Cipollini and Sinelli and things like that. But they're also famous for doing mostly componentry, famously Campagnolo and amongst others. So them getting Mavic, I think, is a really, really big deal. And I'm actually really happy about it because Mavic tried to go pretty much direct and only work with a couple of select dealers. And as such, it became increasingly hard for you guys to just obtain what should be easy to obtain parts. Things like, the tools to undo your Mavic 360 hubs or whatever. If you just needed a spare ratchet drive or that little circlip that always breaks, maybe you needed one of their proprietary spokes. It became harder and harder to just get those small bits. I mean, they're fundamentally proprietary Mavic spokes, but not everyone could get to a Mavic dealer because their dealership just shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. So I think Mavic almost had to do this to survive. If they're really going to compete with DT Swiss, they had to really make sure that every bike shop has access to every single part of a Mavic wheel. And I applaud it because that's one of my major bugbears with Mavic. Nothing to do with their build quality. It's more to do with the frustration of just getting what should be a very easy to obtain part delivered in a reasonable time frame. And now we can do it. It looks like Chicken Cycle Kit are going to be delivering the entire range. Every tool, every spoke, every circlip, every washer is going to be on that website, and pretty much every bike shop in the UK is going to be able to access that, and that's going to be such a massive boost to Mavic. I think it really does take them away from that niche, complicated to own, annoying to own product into something that's really easy to own. So happy with that. We've also seen Microshift being taken up by Ison. Industry 9 hubs have been picked up by Lion Equipment. There's lots of things going on like that. At the same time, we're not really seeing an awful lot of innovation happen at the moment. The one big thing that I really thought would happen is Shimano cues for the road. Doesn't seem to be happening. Those trade shows are starting to happen and doesn't seem to have been any announcement just yet, which is a real shame, because I think the industry really, really needs Shimano cues for the road right now, again, just to bring prices back down to a reasonable level for entry level, because the entry level group sets from Shimano and SRAM have not been updated for a long time. I'm going to hasten to guess, but probably almost a decade, I reckon, for some of them. It seems to be like a very, very long time. The other thing that I have noticed is that the actual bike brands themselves, we're starting to attract the attention of a few bike brands, is probably the best way to put it. And we've spoken to a few. We're always open-minded to exploring new partnerships. We're pretty committed to look and time, and really never had any intention of selling bikes here. It just seemed to be a relationship that developed. We've always stuck by our values of really, really high quality bikes that are easy to service and live with, and always just admired working with Time and Look. It's not been a thing that we want to make loads of money out of it, but it was nice that our customers came to us for our expertise in servicing, and it was like a natural extension of that business model, as opposed to we want to sell bikes. What we're finding is that more and more bicycle brands are approaching us on the idea that we don't have to buy into 20, 30 bikes to achieve a certain margin. Happy to work with us on a frame only, because I think they're seeing the same trends as we are, that when you guys, a rider, wants to get the best value for money out of a fully built bike, then the best way to achieve that is to buy it directly from the brand, achieve the best price you possibly can. They're a bigger thing. They can also offer 0% finance, like we've seen on the Giant website, etc. But when you are trying to recycle your bike, and the nice thing about road bikes, especially now, they've achieved this sort of level of homogenization where things like flat mount brakes have become a bit more standardized, the axles have been standardized, disc brakes are now a lot more standardized, that sort of thing, that you can now invest and upgrade your wheels, upgrade your gear ratios or whatever. And then when you come to upgrading your frame, you've already got an awful lot of the components that you actually need. And it's just a natural, I'm going to upgrade my frame this year. And that, for me, is like bringing back the beauty of cycling. I think it went through 5 to 6 years worth of really complicated. You're coming out with different bottom bracket standards all the time, and different axles and brake mounts. Now everything's getting to be a whole lot more standard. It's a lot easier to be able to upgrade your wheels and then upgrade your frame at a later date. And I think a few of the big brands are really cottoning onto that now and offering their frame onlys at a much more reasonable price. In fact, we have quite an exciting announcement coming up fairly soon as well. So there we go. That's my observations as to what's happening in the industry right now. So I think it's going to be a pretty exciting year. I think there's still an awful lot of changes to be made. I think me and Simon said that in one of the interviews that we did when we took on their investment, was that right now things are getting thrown up in the air, and where the dust settles is only going to be opportunity. And that's kind of how we are going into 2023. So let's see what happens.